Okay, so I'm really looking forward to this. Um, we have Jay Moller here, or perhaps Muller. I'm sorry. And I think this is going to be one of the more interesting conversations I've ever had, in fact. Jay does something very unusual for a person who stutters. What is that, Jay?
Uh, I practice law, and I mainly do appeals. I've argued 11 cases before the California Supreme Court,
Hmm.
6 of which are death penalty cases. I have 4 pending death penalty cases that I still have to argue. I
Wow.
have done about a dozen trials. I don't like them. That's that's days or even weeks, and I find it awfully stressful. The California Supreme Court arguments are somewhere between 30 and 60 minutes, and it is a high pressured situation because I'm in front of 7 justices
Hmm.
of the Cal Supreme Court, trying to persuade them, which I don't often do, and most people with death penalty cases before the Cal Supreme Court do not have much luck, but they affirm more than 90% of the cases. But it's only the first step in death penalty litigation, and so then it goes on to habeas corpus in the state and federal level. It goes to the federal courts, and I don't do that. I'm just appointed to do the initial appeal to the Cal Supreme Court.
Mhm. So, I mean, I would have, I would have never considered a career in law. I mean, I that would be like the craziest thing to me in the world. Uh, and in truth, I actually compromised what I really wanted to do in life until I was 47. So, which was brutal. How did you decide to become a courtroom lawyer?
Uh, I actually have always focused on appeals, and I clerked staff attorney at the Ninth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals
So
after law
how did
school.
you even decide to go to law school? I mean,
Right.
even then,
Um,
and yeah, go on.
you know, uh, I moved out to California from back east a year after I graduated from college, and had a carload of books. I didn't feel educated. I wanted to read a lot of books, which I was able to do, and figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And people always said, "Oh, you argue so well, even with my stutter." And
Really? You argued?
I guess I argued with people. I don't know. I guess
I
I've always
couldn't even
had.
ask a question until I was 40.
Oh my gosh! So let me,
Wow.
let me say my stuttering has gone from bad to fluent to not so
Oh,
fluent.
okay.
Absolutely. College, I was so disfluent once in a history class. I could barely get a word out.
Hmm.
And I went to the school psychologist. I mean, I was feeling, as you had mentioned, desperate is the word. It's like this isn't this isn't working. So it was great. It was Trinity College in Hartford,
Oh,
Connecticut. I didn't
that's
have
good.
that much money, and they gave me a speech therapist for the first time. My mom had tried to convince me to do it when I was 5, and I told her I speak fine. I don't want to do it,
Oh,
and she didn't push it. And of course,
uh-huh.
my speech wasn't an issue until I hit adolescence.
Oh,
But I
really?
got, I stuttered, but it wasn't wasn't a big deal to me. I was a kid and everything was fine. I had friends, and it wasn't that severe. But
Yeah.
when I hit adolescence and got self-conscious, it became more severe. But I got through high school and did well. In fact, I was Mr. St. John's Prep, so
Wow.
kind of the top award, mainly because I did these walks on hunger. I organized the walk on hunger,
Oh,
and I was in the student council and ran track.
wow.
But anyway, in
You
college,
know where I was in college?
where? What now?
I was hiding.
You were, oh,
Hiding.
yeah, yeah.
I would not have even thought of going to student council or organizing anything. I mean, I was on, like intramural football teams, but other than that, I was in a bar drinking, and other than that, just hiding. There was
Wow. So, I never let the stuttering affect what I did.
incredible.
But
That's great. I'm so
but
impressed.
it did get so severe at my first year in college that I went to a speech therapist, and she was great,
Huh,
and
nice.
I became quite fluent by the time I was a senior, even a junior, and she did the typical, on the phone and reading aloud and just increasing the stress levels. And I was quite fluent. And so
That's
maybe
great.
that's why, in part, I could think about applying to law school, is that I was pretty fluent. But no, I don't think that was it. What happened was that I disliked stuttering so much that as it came back,
Yeah.
I started to do avoidance and stuff.
Yeah.
I started to do things that reinforce you're a stutterer, you hate it, you'll do
Uh-huh.
anything not
Yeah.
to stutter. People won't like you or won't date you, whatever, right?
Right.
But so I applied to law school, and the first year of law school, it was okay. I mean, I stuttered. I was stuttering. But moot court first year with
Mhm.
3 judges up on a panel, and
Yeah.
I could barely get a word out.
Ah,
I was just,
yeah.
it was
Hmm.
so again, I went to the school psychologist at Berkeley.
Yeah.
And again, they kindly paid for and set me up with a
Really
speech
nice.
therapist.
Wow.
And again, for the second time in my life, yeah, I gained a lot of fluency. And so
Fantastic.
at least such I was able to finish law school and did fine,
Uh-huh.
and then got that job with the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals for a couple of years.
Hmm.
And then went back home to not home, but where I had lived for a couple of years before law school was Humboldt County, California.
Hmm.
It's in the mountains. It's infamous for its marijuana. It's all hippie.
Yeah.
Kind of it's where the Haight-Ashbury and the LSD people moved out of the city and came to Humboldt and Mendocino.
Yeah.
So and so I came back, and before I had left, I had worked in a law office, so a local guy, Mike Solomon, and to see what a lawyer did and to see if I might like it. And I was at the time helping to build a house and growing marijuana,
Hmm.
and I liked the law so much more. I liked the intellectual
Yeah.
challenge. And so I applied to just two schools, UC Hastings and UC Berkeley,
Oh,
and figured if I get in, great. If I don't, I'll grow
there's always
marijuana.
marijuana, right?
Yeah.
So has your stuttering impacted your career?
Mm, it might.
Not really.
Not really. I mean,
Wow.
I worked for Mike, and he asked me to appear in trial court he had a general practice, and so I appeared in, and I stuttered a lot that first
You did.
that first year, because again, after I left law school and the speech therapy, again, the same thing that happened when I left college in speech therapy is that I didn't, I tried to hide that I stuttered.
Yeah. Why do you think that the speech, I mean, it's great that the speech therapy helped you. I mean, this is a great advertisement for speech therapy, which is so important. And I don't think people realize how helpful it can be. Why do you think it helped you? Why do you think that after it helped you so much that you regressed backward?
It was absolutely my embarrassment, my hatred of it, my wanting to pass as a fluent speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just began the whole avoidance, or starting a sentence over again, or the elephant in my mind was, don't stutter. Watch out for that next word. Watch out,
Right.
or change the word, or and that's the opposite of speech therapy. It gets, and eventually, all those tricks, they're not speech therapy tricks. They're the bad tricks.
Yeah.
And eventually I'm extremely disfluent again. I've been extremely disfluent in court over the last 40 years.
Really?
But
do your clients like question you and say, maybe I shouldn't have gotten this guy?
They haven't. They haven't. But my appellate clients, which is 80-90% of my practice,
yeah,
they hear me on the phone. But and a small part of appellate practice is oral argument, and most of the time you don't even do it. At the Cal Supreme, the Cal Supreme Court, you have to do it, but in the Court of Appeal, you don't have to do it. So no, but a trial, like a 2-week trial, what happens is what you see my speech doing now, is that I get so focused on the objective, that is, win this trial, that I just go into a different space where I'm not being concerned about don't stutter. I find the concern don't stutter is the worst. And if I can get into the space of I'm just talking, and stutter might happen, but I'm gonna act as if it's fine. I stutter, it's fine. I speak fluently, it's fine.
Yep.
And so what happened to me is I had a guru up here, kind of a spiritual teacher. He wasn't a Hindu, although I am a Hindu.
Well, it is California,
It is California, and I am your typical, I have a guru and whatever. But I tried all the drugs. And and so, but he, like you, was not a speech therapist, but he was an intuitive guy. Mm-hmm. And I worked with him for a couple of years, and it wasn't like the techniques you do in speech therapy. It was get over yourself.
Yep.
It's like it doesn't. The only person who is making this a big deal is you.
Yeah.
And so don't try techniques. Don't try not to, just talk. Right. And if you're fluent, great. If you're not fluent, great. And that was 10 years ago. And my fluency has greatly increased. So that when I get in front of the Cal Supreme Court, I stutter a little bit, but it's not. And they are all woke people who don't laugh or make funny.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they know, and they've seen me a lot, actually. I mean, 11 oral arguments at the Cal Supreme Court
It's a
is a
lot.
lot.
That's a
And
lot.
so not many people have argued more cases at the
Really?
court.
Wow.
I mean, there's
And,
some.
and so trying not to focus on your stuttering, trying to focus on what you really need to get done and just get out there and talk, that's really helped you, right?
Absolutely. It's just, you're in the flow. You're not concerned. I'm not concerned or anxious or worried about stuttering. I'm concerned and anxious about getting my points across,
Right.
about persuading them to overturn a death sentence when all my death penalty guys have done horrific things, you know. And I know there's a less than 10% chance of winning, so it's an uphill battle, and you know, and to some extent it's for show. I mean, the court has had the case for years, not months, years.
Yeah.
They have a bench memo, they have a draft opinion where I lose, you know? And so, you know, so to shift the court's opinion about what they are going to do in 45 minutes, it's not happening. You know, at the U.S. Supreme Court, at the Cal Supreme Court, they have their minds made up. You can stand on your head. You can do it. There's nothing you can do to change their mind.
Yeah.
And I know that, yeah, because I worked behind the scenes at the Ninth Circuit. I also worked for 2 years as a staff attorney. That is, I was the one who was preparing those bench memos.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and I saw what happened to the bench memos, and you know, and which was usually, you know, they just did what I suggested. If they didn't, it was an ideological thing on the bench. So I got right-wing judges instead of left-wing judges. It wasn't anything that anyone said at oral argument that changed their mind. And the same thing at the Cal Supreme Court. I worked as a student extern, so I saw, what do they say, how the pancakes are made, and so I saw how it's done. An oral argument is it's not useful, but you know, it's so important. You know, these are big cases at the Cal Supreme Court or the U.S. Supreme Court, so they have oral argument as part of the tradition, and you know, and because they are important cases, so they act like that, that they could be persuaded.
In your usual life, in your regular life with, you know, family, friends, whatever, is your speech better or worse than when you're doing an oral argument?
That's a great question. And it used to be like when I had a 2-week trial that I was actually more fluent in court than outside of court, because I could turn on. It was just like turning on a switch. The first time it happened to me when I was in high school, I gave a speech to the entire school as I was running for student council. And it was a miracle. I was totally fluent. And it was the first time I'd experienced that. Oh, there's a space, there's a consciousness where I'm so nervous or so focused on what I'm trying to say that I don't stutter. But it was so hard to get that. And so in normal life, I stuttered more than in that high stressful situation. Now, though, it is different. Now I am like 95% fluent in my normal life. I mean, it's a miracle, and it's not like the other 2 times I was quite fluent after speech therapy, but I still hated to stutter. I still wanted to pass as a non-stutterer, and it came back. It got, you know, this time, no, I'm okay. I'm a stutterer, and sometimes I stutter.
So,
that means that I'm not thinking about it all the time. I'm not thinking about, oh, I don't try to stutter. I don't try not to stutter, and I am like fluent. But the main thing is it's so relaxing. It's so nice to talk like a normal speaker. Normal speakers aren't thinking, don't stutter.
Yep. They're not thinking about all this stuff. So last question, what advice do you have for our listeners? Maybe you've already said it, but I just thought I'd give you one more chance at more pearls of wisdom. Or it could be the same.
It doesn't have to define you, stuttering. People get embarrassed about lots of things. There was a black woman on one of the sites, and I said, I kind of wasn't sure if I should say it, but it's like, hey, they're racist out there, and you're not embarrassed because you're black. It's like, screw them, right? And you don't have to be embarrassed about stuttering. It is a choice within you. It's just you. You're making this all up that there's a problem.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's easy to change that state of consciousness. And if you're so disfluent, go to a speech therapist. If you can't even, because for sure. But then once you're fluent, and it's like the alcoholics, right? It's like I'm an alcoholic, even if you haven't had a drink for 20 years.
Yeah.
I'm a stutterer, even if I haven't stuttered for the last month. It's because it's that acceptance. It's that acceptance. And it's a great feeling not to be worried and to accept yourself and and so that was what my friend the guru focused on, and that was like the nail in the door or something, whatever. It's like,
yeah,
it's like no techniques, just attitude, all attitude. And you see, I stutter sometimes, but it's not a big deal anymore. I don't hate myself for it. I'm not embarrassed about it. And I swear that attitude makes my speech a whole lot more fluent, and it's just easier in life.
That's great, Jay. Boy, hopefully everyone's going to watch this, because you really, really gave us some wonderful advice, and I really enjoyed talking with you. Let's keep in touch, okay?
Yeah, no, I like that. I'd like to hear what you said you worked on your last name, and I want to just
my
say,
first name.
Oh,
It was the first name that was even harder. Wait.
Oh my gosh! So for some reason, I had difficulty on Moller,
but now it's easy.
Do. What now?
But now it's easy, so it's okay.
It still is a little frustrating when there's a block that big, but it's just part of who I am, and
yes. Right.
And and I am happy with my life, and and my life has turned out fine, and I am grateful for that. And people have worse challenges than stuttering.
We've all got something, don't we? I mean, in your world and in my world, we see people who you would think are perfect, but we've all got something. And I think you had some really nice messages about accepting, about not focusing on yourself, focus on what you're trying to convey, and what your goal is for the conversation. Just terrific, just terrific. Jay,
thank you. I've enjoyed speaking with you, and I hope it maybe helps somebody, because 70 years of stuttering, it's been a hassle at times. I'm not, and when I was so desperate as to go to the school psychologists. You know, it was, I mean, I wasn't suicidal, but I was really depressed.
Yeah, I have been there, my friend. Just one correction. I don't think you've been stuttering for 70 years. You've probably been stuttering for 65.
68 or 60.
Yeah.
You know what, though? My earliest memory, and I love my mom, and she has recently passed,
Oh, sorry to hear that.
but is her turning away
Mm,
when I stuttered.
yeah.
And it was, and the kid in me was like, oh no, I'll do anything
Yeah, sure.
for your love, and don't, you know, and I'll try not to stutter. That's the when I, you know, try not to stutter. What happened at the age of 2 or 3. I mean, it
Yeah.
was, and mom was slow down and take a deep breath, or, you know, all those very bad advice,
Yeah.
but she didn't know. And that's why I believe that my father stuttered until he was in late high school and went into the Navy, and
My dad too.
and a brother of mine stutters, but hides it, totally hides it, doesn't admit he
Yeah.
stutters, and is, you know, and can pull it off, but he stutters, you know.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
he stutters, but he does all those avoidance techniques, and it works for him. And so, yeah, so for sure, I had more than normal disfluency as learning to speak, but calling attention to it is a no-no. It
Right.
makes it worse. And so, if it's anyone out there with kids, do not call attention to it. It's just normal disfluency. They'll get over. And if not, go see a speech therapist and make them take speech therapy,
Right.
whether they excuse me, whether they want to or not.
Yeah.
Because that's the age to catch it, right? Oh
That's
my
the
God!
age.
If you can catch it before adolescence, you're home free.
5 to 10. Right. Right. Hey, Jay, it's been great talking with you.
Hey,
Let's
great talking to you. Take care.
This is going to be help a lot of people.
Oh,
Take
good. I hope so.
Okay. Bye-bye.